So our first lesson in Illustrator is going to be how to arrange objects and work with objects inside of Illustrator. What's really great about this is you've probably drawn something at some point on a computer, whether that was in Paint or Word or somewhere else, where you're using shapes and you're organizing those shapes. So these concepts will kind of be familiar to you if you've done that before. If not, it's going to be super simple because all you have to think of when you're using Illustrator is almost like if you were making a project out of construction paper. If you were to make a snowman out of construction paper, you would probably have white and then you'd paste black on top of it, and you'd probably put orange for the carrot of the nose, and then the hat, if you think about it, you'd have black that you would paste on top of the white of the snowman, and then you'd paste the red little banner on the black top hat on top of the black, and so on and so forth. So you're really taking objects or pieces of construction paper, if you think about it, and you're placing them one on top of each other and making them arrange in a way that in the end it looks like your object that you want it to be in the end. So that's essentially what we're doing in Illustrator. What's also great about Illustrator is that it's perfect for graphic creation. It is not like Photoshop. Photoshop is great for photo manipulation, but Illustrator is really great for graphic creation. And the reason that is because they're in vectors. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and open up our first file. So we've got our tree with a fence here. I've downloaded it and put it into the correct folder. If you have not downloaded it and put in the folder from the assignment, you need to go do that now. And I'm going to open that up inside of Illustrator. That's going to go ahead and pop open my program and look something like this. The difference between Illustrator and Photoshop, the biggest difference is usually when you take an image and you start zooming in on it, what happens to that image? It does something called pixelate, right? You then begin to see the different boxes that create that image, and you can see the boxes and you'll end up having that pixelation if you try and enlarge it. That's what happens in Photoshop because every photo is created with pixels. However, in this case, we're in Illustrator and it's working in vectors. So if you have a vectorized object, that means that Illustrator has done the math and figured out how to keep it consistent no matter how big or small it is. So normally when I would zoom in, it would pixelate, but if I zoom in on the tree over here, it's not going to. What we're going to learn while we're in the Adobe programs is you're going to use a lot of keyboard shortcuts. So you're going to need to use your left hand and your right hand at the same time. Crazy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Alt on my keyboard with my left hand, and I'm going to go ahead and use my scroll wheel on my mouse or my trackpad. If you need to, there is also a zoom option over here on the left in the tools called the zoom tool. And you can see that it's defaulted to plus, and I can click and I can zoom inward. Or if I hold Alt on my keyboard, I can zoom out with the minus sign. But the scrolling is definitely a lot faster. So what I'm going to do is go back to my selection tool here real quick on the left, and I'm going to keep zooming in as far as I can on the edge of this tree. And when I do that, you'll see that no matter how far I zoomed in, I mean, right now, let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can, I did too much. Oh my word. Zooming out with Alt and scroll. No matter how far I zoom in, I'm at 4,800% here. And you can see up here in the file name how close you are. I am getting closer and closer. It's not pixelating because it's a vector. And that means that as we zoom in, the math works, the math changes, it vectorizes, and it's there. So something to kind of note as you're working. The other thing to note with this file, if you zoom really far out, you'll be able to see both artboards. These different areas in Illustrator are called artboards. And that essentially means like two different image areas that we can work in. If anything sits out in this gray area called the pasteboard, it's not going to appear in the image when we create the image in the long run. So for instance, the side of the tree over here is going to get cut off when we export this as an image, which is fine because, in this graphic, we're going to have the tree be cut off on the right. But what's important as we're moving through here is that you need to be aware that we are working with vectorized images at this point, but not all images are vectorized. You might have to vectorize them when you bring them into Illustrator. And again, we're doing an image or graphic creation and not manipulation, and that's what Photoshop is for. So as we're in here, couple different things. I'm going to be looking around the entire screen and talking about different areas. We're going to learn a lot of new vocabulary, but it's going to be okay. This is going to be fun, and we're going to create a really awesome fence with a tree behind it and some apples and a hat and all those kinds of things. And then you're going to go off and create your own bus and snowman on your own as well.